Salutations readers, today I'm going to be talking about Sweet Heat by Babalola. Thank you to William Morrow for an e-arc via NetGalley in exchange of an honest review. And y'all, this is going to be a very, very honest review because this book really disappointed me and I need to talk my shit about it. I'm hoping that by the time this video is up, the book is also already out. Even though I was gifted an arc and stuff, I will not be giving any direct quotations as it is not a finished copy. But I do want to at least talk a bit about some spoilers, maybe adding one quote, because I only have really one quote I really want to share, but we have to save that for basically the end of this video. This was going to be a mostly spoiler-free video until the very end where I ask some spoilers, and then, we wrap up the video and all the things. But I have to talk about Sweet Heat because, oh my gosh, y'all. Now, if you're not really sure what Sweet Heat is really about, I will give y'all the synopsis courtesy of Goodreads. Synopsis reads, 3 years after their breakup, Kiki's worked hard to forget her first love. But just as she thinks she's got her life under control, jumping into the distractions of her romance by calendar invite boyfriend and plans for her best friend Amina's wedding, Kiki's career implodes. The family business teeters on collapse and Malachi returns. As Malachi takes up his role as best man opposite her maid of honor, suddenly Kiki can think of nothing but their simmering chemistry, what went wrong, and why it is now impossible to act normal around each other. Juggling a new job, the prospect of her parents' restaurant being sold, and keeping her best friend from going full bridezilla, dealing with the ex is the last thing she needs. But somehow the spark between them is only getting hotter and threatening to ruin everything. So based on the synopsis, you could tell that this does sound like a sequel to Honey and Spice, which it is. It's definitely just a sequel. Granted, I think there is enough of this book that provides context that you don't necessarily need to read Honey and Spice, but if you want the actual emotional investment of like the heartbreak between these two, Honey and Spice was Babalola's debut novel, and now her sophomore novel is basically a sequel to that. We're following the same characters, the exact same couple. It's just that it's 8 years in between. And Honey and Spice, they were college students, and now they are like adults in the real world, doing adult things and figuring out about their careers and stuff and figuring out their own lives and what to do with themselves. I think that is the main thing you have to know about this book. So when this book was announced, I was cautiously optimistic. I was really excited to find out that Babalola has another novel coming out. Now, I had to pump the brakes a little bit because it would basically be a sequel to Honey and Spice. At first, I think it was announced that it would be a standalone companion, but I think now time has gone on. I think they really realized that, yeah, this is basically a sequel to Honey and Spice because, like, we're following the exact same characters. We're seeing their love story again, all that stuff. And at the time, before I even, decided to request an e-arc, I was a little bit hesitant as well because it is second chance romance. And as someone who's not an avid romance reader, I'm not avidly aware of the second chance romance as like a trope. It's not a trope that I really look for, but it's also not a trope that I actively avoid. But I will say the part that this is a second chance romance is going to come up in this review because I had a lot of qualms regarding the execution of this second chance romance. And just like similar to Honey and Spice, this is also an adult contemporary romance, which is fine. And this writing style is also pretty similar to Honey and Spice. So if you're not a fan of Honey and Spice for its writing style, just don't even bother with Sweet Heat because it's basically the same thing here. I don't know. What else do y'all need to know before I get to my spoilery-free thoughts here? I guess the one thing you just have to know that before I even got a chance to even read this e-arc, I was just optimistic. I was cautiously optimistic based on the synopsis, but I wanted to give Babalola a chance here because I loved Honey and Spice when I read it 3 years ago now. Honey and Spice was actually one of those contemporary romance books that I read early in my, accidentally reading for a romance journey that I'm kind of a part on right now, that I really loved and gave 5 stars to. So with Sweet Heat, I thought I would at least really enjoy it. If not give it 5 stars, hopefully give it 4.5, maybe in a solid 4, worst comes to worst. But spoiler alert, it's not either one of those ratings at all. We'll talk about the rating at the end. I think that's it for what I can say about the synopsis, my initial thoughts before starting reading this book. So let's actually just get into the nitty gritty of this book. Spoiler free, of course. I'll let y'all know when we get to the spoiler section. But right now, we got to talk about the writing style. The writing style in Sweet Heat is similar. It's prose-wise, it is similar to Honey and Spice. However, and I think I probably should have mentioned this actually in the previous section, but Sweet Heat is nearly 500 pages. It's actually officially 496, but it's basically a 500-page romance novel, which when you think of a romance novel that's that long, you would think it's a slow burn. And it's odd to me to say that yes and no. I don't know. It didn't feel like a consistent slow burn. It just felt like a really long romance book. The actual sentence structures were way too long. The sentences were too long. There were too many run-on sentences. I felt like we were just repeating ourselves over and over again. This book is only in Kiki's perspective, and it is also first person. And I don't really think for a romance book this long, especially as a second chance romance, should be in first person single POV. I really got so exhausted being stuck in Kiki's head for this entire book compared to like Honey and Spice. I actually really liked being in Kiki's head in Honey and Spice, but like in this book, nah, I was tired. I was like, okay, can y'all shut up right now? I need y'all to shut up. You talking way too much. Like, it actually took me about 2 weeks to even read the first half of this novel. And then I sped through like the second half because I just wanted it to be over. And I really wanted to know as well, since I was already invested in this couple, why they broke up, which we'll definitely talk about that in the spoiler section. So that's all I have right now that I can think of regarding writing. Let's talk about the characters. So again, this is indeed single first person POV. We're following Kiki, like we're in Kiki's head the entire time. We do not get any respite of it, unfortunately, which I think is a major mistake, not gonna lie, for a second chance romance, and especially with a second chance romance where we're following the exact same characters from your debut novel to your sophomore novel. I think it would have been very interesting, and actually I think it even might elevate the novel just a little bit more if we actually got Malachi's perspective, especially since we never got that in the first book. Because actually that was one of the things I really wish for Honey and Spice, is that we got Malachi's perspective. But in this sequel, I definitely think the second perspective would have been completely necessary, especially since a lot of this novel is just Kiki and Malachi refusing to actually talk about their breakup. Like, a lot of this novel is like, oh, we don't want to talk up, there's a lot of unsaids, we don't really want to talk about, you know, what actually happened, how that made us feel, which is very, very, very frustrating. So yes, we do have the miscommunication trope here, which I know for miscommunication trope, it's definitely one of the most annoying romance tropes, but also it's necessary because that is real. Yes, there are people who really do avoid to talk about their feelings, but if you're going to give me a 500-page contemporary romance novel, you better have them talking about at least about the breakup, at least. Like, explain to me why it took up to the 75% mark for us to actually get why they broke up. It took you like nearly 400 pages of this novel to even know why they broke up in the first place. You don't get in this, like I told you on the synopsis, we don't even get a reason why, which I think is a mistake. That's a mistake. We should know in like the first third why these two broke up. If you want to put in the synopsis, fine, but you gotta tell us in the first third. Not waiting until like the last quarter of the book for us to get the actual, like, what happened, you know? And also light spoilers here as well. Very, very light spoilers. But, like, Kiki does have a guy, like, again, like, you know, romance by invite, calendar invite boyfriend. It's really like a rebound relationship, honestly. It's not as serious. At least when I was reading it, I'm like, it doesn't feel as serious. It feels so boring. It was such a boring rebound relationship thing. I don't even know why Kiki bothered with this guy for so long. I think she was with him for like a couple of years. So yeah, I was like, that was a waste of time there. But you know, whatever. Choices were made. There's a point in the story we do get to learn about with Malachi and how he also felt about the breakup. Like you know, how he felt and stuff. Again, that's why I really wish we got that second POV with his perspective in it so that we can get more of his character. Because I think it would have really helped to round out the book if we got Malachi's character perspective, because we can also see in his perspective on how he felt about the breakup. Because honestly, Kiki felt basically she was heartbroken about the breakup. And so was Malachi. It's just that it took us a while to actually get to that, to actually know how heartbroken he felt as well. And how he coped with that breakup. And because I don't know, we were just in Kiki's head for too long. I'm like, dang, I need to know what's in Malachi's head. I want to know his perspective on things. And the fact that too, that a lot of this book is basically miscommunication in the sense of like they refuse to communicate. It did make the book feel really, really, really slow, unfortunately. And also, a lot was also going on in this novel too. So like in the synopsis, Malachi's the best man, Kiki's the maid of honor for Amina's wedding, because Amina and Kofi, like Amina is Kiki's best friend and Kofi is Malachi's best friend, and Amina and Kofi are getting married, so you know, they had to work together for this wedding anyways. And then later on in the novel, you get this bit regarding for Kiki's career. Like gets hired to do this like really cool project around somewhere in the middle of the novel. And Malachi is also mixed into that as well, which I think is kind of unnecessary. I kind of wished, like, if you're not going to give Malachi a single perspective, I don't think we should add in more tension and angst between the two. We already got that regarding the wedding. In fact, they had to see each other again after like nearly 3 years of not seeing each other. And then now you're adding this professional career thing in the mix as well between the two, which I also think was unnecessary. Like, we already had them working together in the wedding. I don't think this creative project thing was necessary. I think it should have been like maybe one or the other or something. Like, maybe they work together in this creative project thing, and then it's just like someone else be the best man for the wedding thing. Like, he'd just be like a guest, which makes sense. He would have been invited to the wedding, but like still, you know, like, I don't know. I just feel like it was just doing too much. And then also the part regarding Kiki's parents and like the restaurant. I really could care less about the restaurant bit. It was such a minor subplot that I just could not care, because it had to do with the creative project and the wedding and the whole thing regarding Amina and Kiki. Their friendship was definitely being tested in this novel, y'all. Oh my gosh, it was really irritating. So like the whole parent restaurant thing was hella boring, unnecessary, and also not overly developed, not gonna lie, because again, why would we have that there? And then we have again the wedding and Amina basically becoming Bridezilla, which honestly was very, very irritating. Like, girl, a lot about this book, I really have to talk regarding characters, but it has to do with the fact that this is a second chance romance. I have learned after reading August Lane by Regina Black that second chance romance, it could really work for me if you allow to have more than one perspective. Because I think a single POV with a second chance romance just does not work, because I need to know both sides as to why they even broke up. Like, in a second chance romance, whether the characters were actually in a committed relationship, then they broke up trying to get back together, or they just liked each other and then like something happened to split them apart, so they never officially become a couple or anything like that, but they fell in love again and all the things. And I have to compare Sweet Heat to August Lane, because I actually read August Lane and it came out this year too. Like, August Lane is also a sophomore novel to an author whose debut novel came out like a couple years ago. And I think this is kind of comparable because they're both second chance romances. And there's time gaps in between, like when the main characters met and like had their love story, and then coming back again when they're older, similar vein. And also, but the thing about August Lane that really worked, that Sweet Heat does not work, is that in August Lane, it was dual perspective. But in Sweet Heat, we're only in Kiki's head. So I had to deal with Kiki's assumptions, her insecurities, and all that. Like, sure, that's great and all, but like, can we do the same thing for Malachi? I need Malachi to have some depth here. Because honestly, I was really not sure where on earth is really going on in Malachi's head. And instead, it was just Kiki telling the reader, like, oh, this is what, they were like this, you know, in their relationship, that like they could really read each other, like, kind of like mind reading kind of thing. And I don't really like that, honestly, because for me, that's really not realistic. I mean, even if no matter how long you've been together, like, sure, you might see some certain tells, but you don't know what this person's really thinking, you like that, unless they talk to you. And since a lot of this book, they're not talking to each other, it was very irritating. So there's something about the way that in Sweet Heat, how it handled the second chance romance trope, that just really didn't work, because I really did not understand Malachi's perspective for a lot of it, not gonna lie, until we got closer and closer to actually what led them to break up. That's why I could get his perspective more, because that's actually when he started to talk a little bit more. And it's like, dang, couldn't we got that sooner? I mean, I would have had this a lot sooner if we actually had his perspective. You know what I mean? In order for me to be invested in these two reuniting again and falling in love again, you gotta tell me what led up to them breaking apart. Especially since I've already read Honey and Spice. Let me know in the beginning why on earth they broke up, so that when I get that reasoning, I can actually see the next 2/3 in the novel. Like, if you do that within the first third, then at least the next 2/3, I can have that context for when they're starting to like rekindle again, or they get the banter, or like all that stuff. And at this point, since Sweetie did not do that, for a lot of this novel, I was kind of wondering, like, why should these two even get together? For a lot of it, I was like, at this point, they shouldn't even get together. I like their banter and all, but I don't think that means they should be together romantically. At this point, they should just be good friends. Like, that's kind of that's what I felt for the entire time I was reading this book. They should just remain friends, not even bother coming back together. It shouldn't even be a romance. They should just try to remain friends. That's it. Be friendly. And have their nice, cute banter. That's it. Which is really, really sad when this is supposed to be a romance novel. You know, that's not how I'm supposed to be feeling. That's how I'm supposed to be thinking. The thing, too, about Sweetie is that a lot of it did feel like I was reading Honey and Spice, but just spread out too much. In Honey and Spice, it was fake dating with forced proximity, which is the same thing here. We also have forced proximity, but it's second chance romance. The forced proximity thing definitely works. It definitely worked in Honey and Spice with the fake dating situation, the way that Babalola wrote their romance. But in Second Chance, the way that you're trying to, like, especially since we're following the exact same characters, you can't do the same thing again, because then it just feels repetitive. And in that sense, I just would rather just reread Honey and Spice. Now, granted, I am in the minority of my opinions here regarding Sweet Heat, but the use of the miscommunication trope here, it can work. It does work in a romance novel. It can work, even in a second chance romance. It's just that this one, in particular, it really did not work here, which is very, very unfortunate, because conceptually, I could see it working, but not when we are rehashing the same thing already. If you did it, I truly believed if we followed a different couple, I think this book would have worked. It was just following a whole different couple. Because with these two, I was just getting tired. Okay? I got tired of these two, to the point that I didn't even want them to be together, which is not what you want to happen. So I think that's all I have, really. A lot of the characters, a little bit. Yeah, just a lot of missed opportunities, not gonna lie, as far as characters. As far as, like, the themes, because I do kind of want to think about the thematic work, like, I was really trying to figure out why this book was even called Sweet Heat. I also was trying to figure out, why does this book even need to exist, I guess? Which, I don't know, maybe that seems a little bit rude, but, like, I don't understand why Babalola decided to have her next novel basically be a sequel. Like, what more do we need to see of Kiki and Malachi? And to be quite honest, I don't know really there is any reason to see more of these two. I didn't need to see more of them after I read Honey and Spice. And honestly, I'm not totally sure what is the overall theme for this book either. Like, is it the fact that Kiki and Malachi have a love that's worth fighting for and not to abandon and give up on? Is that what this is? If that's the case, then you're just basically saying the same thing in Honey and Spice. That they work well together. Like, that's all I got. Which is kind of nothing to me for the amount of page time that I spent on reading this book. Because if that's the conclusion we're supposed to get, read Honey and Spice. You already got it there. So what are we doing? You know, like, I don't know. Something about this book fundamentally just really irritated me, because, like, an opportunity, if you really want to just go through these characters, to see these characters again on page, but even longer, you gotta give me Malachi's perspective, because that's gonna be something that's fundamentally different than Honey and Spice. And the fact that it took, like, over 400 pages for them to even talk about, talk about the breakup and how they felt and all the things, and it's just like, at that point, I was so mentally not engaged anymore with the novel after the one chapter we get of actually portraying their breakup. Which, by the way, I am going to get into spoilers, actually, because I really want to talk about the breakup and why they broke up and why I mentally and emotionally was no longer invested in this novel. So, spoiler here. So, yeah, I will be talking about the breakup, the actual events that happened in the breakup, and all the things and my thoughts on it. So, fair warning here in 3, 2, 1, spoilers. Okay, so, I think it was in between, I forgot what chapter it was. You know what, I'm not even going to go back to my kobold for this one. I'm just going to go based on my own memory. Actually, you know what, no, I'm not. I need to give y'all quotes. I'm here lying to the peoples. Sorry, hold up. Let me find the chapter. Yeah, so it was in between chapters 14 and 15. So yeah, it was 3.5 years ago. Oh, wow. In this chapter, we actually find out, even leading up to this chapter, we find out that Malachi's father passes away of a heart attack. Based on what I remember from Honey and Spice, Malachi's father was not a very present or an attentive father. He was actually kind of a shitty father, not gonna lie. But I guess sometime in between Honey and Spice and Sweet Heat, he started to, like, really get engaged with his family again, to, like, rebuild their trust and their relationship. And he dies of a heart attack. And it really wrecked Malachi, because he really, really wanted a really good relationship with his father. And unfortunately, he dies. And, like, it was devastating to him, his mom, his brother. It was a lot. He kind of was in a little bit of an autopilot, not gonna lie. He makes sure to set up for funeral, burial, all the things, figuring out what to do with, like, his mom and his brother, take care of them. And it was a lot on him. And to the point that he started to push away from Kiki and the relationship. He was dealing with a lot of grief. So yeah, content warnings honestly for death of parent and grief, because that's honestly what a lot of, for Malachi, he was doing. It was a lot of grief. And I think, and based on my understanding of like even Kiki's side, because again, we're only getting this from Kiki's perspective here, it seems like she was trying to be there for him, you know, help him get in the hospital. She was there for him when they found out that he was dead, there to console him and stuff. And she was feeling like a little bit neglected, honestly, in the relationship, which I understand feeling that way. But like, to me, that's not about you. This is really about Malachi and the fact that he needs to grieve. He needs to take time to grieve. But honestly, Malachi was not actually really taking time to grieve, which I could definitely see that, years later when they come back together. He was trying to focus on work, basically. He definitely needed some sort of grief counseling because it really did hit him hard. And then they had an argument because of this, because this one girl that Malachi was working closely with, that one girl was really liking Malachi, but he was rejecting her advances towards him and stuff, and Kiki was feeling a certain type of way. At first I thought, I was like, girl, are you jealous? Like, he's not engaging with this at all. But then it just felt like for Kiki that she could not really trust him, and it really reminded me of their third act breakup from Honey and Spice, because like she does say, because like they had this argument about the fact that he wanted to take a job in, I think, LA. So like this book does take place in London, or like at least in the UK, basically, like England, and he wants to take this career opportunity in Los Angeles, and he didn't tell her about it. But then she got really mad that he didn't tell her, because she found out from the girl that basically is trying to fill up on Malachi, which made her blow up at him about it, and how, she's feeling like, dang, I'm neglected, and you're not here with me and stuff. And I'm also just like, well, again, he's also grieving right now. Like, again, like I get her frustration that she's being pushed out, but also it's not about you either. Like, what are we doing? Like, I just felt like she got really mad for absolutely no reason, and she held in the fact that she had a problem with the fact that he was pushing her out for too long, that now things are just blown over to the point that it just basically explode. Then she goes to say, actually, let me actually give you a direct quote from the arc, because I have to give y'all a quote here, because what the actual hell? Because this is really what blew up the bridge, not gonna lie. She says to him, and during this in a very heated argument, and yeah, you're working hard to please your dad, I know, but just be careful you're not making the same mistakes as him on the way. Make sure you still have a home to come back to. Which is a terrible thing to say. Granted, Malachi's dad is not perfect, but he also did die, and Malachi's still grieving. She did try to apologize, but damn, girl, you really had to cut through the heart like that. I think that was a very mean thing to say, and she did not need to blow up like that. She held in this kind of resentment towards him for so long, to the point she blew up him like that, and I'm just like, wow. Like, no. Like, no, like, at that point, Malachi is like, yeah, this is not working, because we can't hurt each other like this, you know? So it did basically lead them to just straight up having one last session of them, like, having sex, and then he walks out before she even got up in the morning and left. And I had to say, when I read that breakup, when I got to the point of the breakup, I'm like, wow. So this is what led up to this, huh? This is where we at. Okay, charge my battery again. So where was I? I was talking about the breakup and the quote. Where was my thought going? I don't quite remember where my thought was supposed to be going. But I do remember with regarding that breakup that it made me also think about when Kiki and Malachi first see each other during Amina and Kofi's engagement party. You can clearly read the sexual tension between the two of them. And, oh yeah, we are still in spoilers. So they do also end up having sex as well the very night of the engagement party. And I'm just like, okay, if it was such a hard breakup, I'm kind of surprised that you just all of a sudden had sex with your ex. That's a choice, but okay. Sure. And we're not going to talk about the fact that you just had sex with your ex for hundreds of pages. I don't know. Once I finally got to the breakup, and then already remembering what happened when they first met each other after like 3 years apart, it just made me really realize on how dumb the fact that they even broke up in the first place, you know? It was just so irritating. Like they really broke up because like they didn't want to talk about their feelings like that. And I truly did understand with Malachi regarding his father and dealing with that grief, and also kind of in a way also avoiding his grief. I think in between after they broke up to like when they see each other again, I think he does end up going to grief counseling. I think I'm actually not totally sure when he eventually goes to grief counseling, but I think it was mentioned in the book that he did eventually get to go, which is very good for him. But I just really wish that they had a better discussion regarding their feelings way sooner. So yeah, that was very, very irritating. And afterwards, I'm just like, okay, I'm emotionally drained at this point, because really, I was trying to read this book, trying to figure out why they even broke up in the first place. And then like finally reading that chapter, when we were nearly 400 pages into the novel, I was already like tapped out. I was like, okay, well now I don't even care, because like now the next like 100 pages or so, this author's going to try to convince me that like, yeah, they're going to like get back together because they should, because they still have their feeling, they still are deeply in love and stuff. They need to give it another go around. And I just don't think they should go back together. And I'm actually really angry in the fact that in the epilogue, it's been 2 years like there's now another 2 year, there's another time skip. It's 2 year difference where Malachi decides to propose to Kiki. And in my mind, I'm just like, no, these two would not last. I don't see them lasting at all. So that also irritated me, not gonna lie. Like, honestly, I don't understand why Babalola dragged out the fact that these two broke up. Like, why did we have to wait nearly 400 pages for that? It made no sense to me why we did that at all. Like, what was the point? Do I have anything else to say in the spoilery section? I don't even know. Honestly, no. I don't have anything else to say about the spoilers. So, end of spoilers here. I'm just going to wrap up this book review because I'm done. I am so done right now with this book, and I don't think I'll read anything else by Babalola in the future. Like, I've basically read everything that Babalola has written so far. I've read her debut short story collection, Love and Color. I thought was fine. I've read Honey and Spice. I loved it. And Sweet Heat was definitely one of the worst romance books I've read so far in my romance journey, which is very, very disappointing, not gonna lie. And as you can tell with this review, if you've come this far, you'll have to know that, like, I'm heavily biased with Sweet Heat, that because I have read and loved Honey and Spice, that it really tainted my experience with Sweet Heat. And I'm not totally sure if you start with Sweet Heat, even if you don't have the context of Honey and Spice, how that will work for you. Maybe you enjoy it a little bit more, since you're not already super invested in the story with the two main characters yet. But I don't know if this book really gave enough for those who have not read Honey and Spice to be as invested. Not gonna lie, since they refuse to talk about the breakup for so long, I don't even know if you just start with Sweet Heat first instead of Honey and Spice, if you would enjoy this either. Maybe you won't be as irritated and disappointed as I have been, but like I still don't think this is a good enough romance book in of itself anyways, so I don't even recommend reading Sweet Heat. I just would rather, I would recommend Honey and Spice if you want to read something by Babalola, but if you want like a really good second chance romance book, I highly recommend August Lane by Regina Black. Please. His book also came out this year. Highly recommend. Very much messy, nuance, much shorter. Like, it's only a little bit over 300 pages, so you get much shorter of a book here. There's also a larger gap in between for the characters. Like, I think the love story for them, they were like 16, 17 years old. They come back together when like 31, so it's like 14-year gap in between. And there's a lot of like angst and tension there as well. It's paced better than like Sweet Heat for sure, and you get the main girl and main guy's perspectives in the book as well. So highly recommend. I'm gonna throw y'all Regina Black at y'all every time whenever I talk about romance, because I need people to be locking in. My gosh, that woman is doing amazing things in the romance space. Maybe honestly, when it comes to books that disappoint me, I should give y'all some recommendations of like better versions, if I've read them, or at least, yeah, actually, if there's a better version of the book that disappointed me, I will give y'all a recommendation. That's how I'm gonna do it now, from now on, because we gotta get something positive out of this, because who did I waste my time with this one? All right. Now as far as my final rating, I don't even know where my rating is gonna actually go. I don't know if this is a 2-star read. I don't know if this is 1.5. I don't even know if I'm going to go in the middle and be 1.75. I'm still trying to decide where my rating is going to go because this book was such a slog to get through. I don't even know what the overall message and theme this novel is supposed to be, or if it's really that interesting to really explore for 500 pages. Honestly, I really should have just straight up DNF'd this book. I don't know, maybe I'll end up giving this 1.5 stars. And at this point in the year, this is definitely going to be one of the worst books I've read. In conclusion, this was a disappointment. Don't bother with Sweet Heat. Read Honey and Spice. If you want to read something by Babalola, or if you want a second chance romance, go with August Lane by Regina Black. That's all I got for y'all. Whew. All right. Well, haven't ranted about a book like this in a good long minute, but it had to be done. I had a lot to say, y'all. But thanks, though, to William Morrow for an e-arc via NetGalley in exchange of an honest review. And I had to be very honest. So, yeah, here we are. Anyways, thank you all, though, for joining me here. Like the video if you liked it. Comment down below. Have you read Honey and Spice? Have you read it? Are you still interested, despite my grievances with this book? Are you still going to try and read Sweet Heat? Have you already read Sweet Heat? Like, if you got an arc, have you read it? Or by the time this video is up, hopefully it'll be up after the release date. Maybe by the time you got this video, you've already read Sweet Heat. Let me know if you've read it. I'm actually very curious to know your thoughts because I really am in the minority here. I have looked through reviews. I am in the minority about this book. So I want to know, for those who've loved it, why you loved it. Okay? I actually genuinely would love to know why you loved it. If you like the vibe, you want to see more book review videos from me, consider subscribing, And you made it this far in the video, you're not sure what to say, but you want to leave me an emoji, let me know you're here. You got to leave me like the flaming heart emoji. Or the honey emoji, actually. One of those two emojis, I think. But definitely the flaming heart emoji. Anyways, thank you again for watching this video, and I hope to see you all in my next one. Bye.